They guard their peace with intention because over time they have learned that peace is not something freely given, but something that must be protected and nurtured with care and consistency. And one of the most profound realizations they carry is that not everyone deserves access to their mind, their heart, or their energy. And in younger years, people often believe that saying yes to everything or fighting every battle is a sign of strength. But with age comes the understanding that strength is not in being everywhere for everyone. It is in choosing carefully where to stand and when to step back. And this shift in perspective allows them to value quiet moments over unnecessary noise and to create a space in their lives where calmness is not an accident but a decision made daily. When they encounter conflict, they don't immediately react or throw themselves into arguments that serve no purpose because they know that not every comment needs to be addressed and not every disagreement needs to escalate. And through years of experience, they have discovered that peace often comes not from proving themselves right, but from walking away at the right moment and letting the other person hold on to their opinions while they hold on to their calm. And this is not weakness, it is wisdom, because when you stop giving your energy to what drains you, you suddenly have more energy for what truly matters. And they understand that deeply, which is why they guard their peace the way someone would guard their most valuable possession. They also become highly selective about the people they allow into their inner circle, because peace is directly tied to relationships. And they know that surrounding themselves with constant complainers, critics, or manipulators only disrupts their stability. So instead, they choose to spend time with people who uplift, inspire, and respect boundaries. And it is in this careful choosing that they protect their mental and emotional health. And many people do not notice this habit because it happens quietly behind the scenes, yet it is one of the strongest shields they have built over the years, because protecting peace means protecting themselves from toxic influence. This habit of guarding peace extends beyond people and arguments into the daily choices they make, because they know that peace is easily stolen by busyness, by comparison, by pressure, and by noise. So they design their days with intentional pauses, small moments to breathe, reflect, and reset. And while others may see these pauses as unimportant, they understand that peace is built in those quiet resets, and it is what allows them to respond with clarity rather than chaos. And when life throws challenges their way, their ability to remain centered comes not from luck, but from the discipline of guarding peace long before the storm even arrived. Another way they protect their peace is through letting go of things that no longer serve them. And this could be old grudges, past mistakes, unrealistic expectations, or even material possessions. Because with age comes the realization that holding on too tightly creates weight, and that weight suffocates peace. And so they learn to release with grace. And in letting go, they create space for something lighter and healthier to enter. And this act of release is not dramatic. It is steady and deliberate, and it is one of the most transformative ways they safeguard their sense of calm. They also stop apologizing for prioritizing themselves because they know peace is personal. And if they are constantly sacrificing their well-being for others, they cannot function at their best. And in younger years, they may have felt guilty for saying no or for stepping away, but now they understand that preserving their peace is not selfish, it is necessary. And when they honor this truth, they not only live calmer lives, but they also model for others what it looks like to stand firmly in self-respect without being swayed by guilt or outside pressure. Finally, the practice of guarding peace becomes their default approach to life. It is not a single action, but a layered habit that shows up in the way they speak, the way they choose their battles, the way they filter relationships, and the way they create balance. And while others may mistake their calmness for detachment or disinterest, the truth is that it is a deliberate act of preservation. They have built a stronghold around their inner world, and within that space, they thrive because peace is not found, it is made. And the older they get, the more intentional they become about protecting it every single day. They prioritize self-respect over people pleasing because life has shown them the heavy cost of constantly bending to meet the expectations of others. And in earlier years, it might have felt easier to say yes, to avoid conflict, to go along with what everyone wanted to keep the peace. But with maturity comes the realization that peace built on self-betrayal is not peace at all. It is exhaustion in disguise. And they discover that every time they say yes, when they really mean no, they are quietly teaching themselves that their own needs matter less, and over time that erodes confidence and identity. So they shift their focus and start choosing self-respect, even if it means disappointing others along the way. This habit does not appear overnight. It grows through repeated experiences where they have stretched themselves too thin, trying to be everything for everyone. And in doing so, they discovered that no matter how much they give, someone will always want more. And no matter how many times they sacrifice themselves, someone will still find a reason to criticize. And that is the moment when they realize people pleasing is a trap with no finish line, but self-respect is a boundary with clear edges. And once those edges are in place, life becomes lighter, calmer, and more authentic because they are no longer chasing approval. They are living with intention. When they choose self-respect over pleasing others, it shows up in their words and actions because they no longer feel the need to justify every decision or explain every boundary. Instead, they simply decide and follow through. And this quiet firmness unsettles some people because they are used to the version of them that always gave in. But with time, others begin to see that this new strength is not arrogance, it is alignment. And they are watching someone who finally knows who they are and what they will and will not allow. And that clarity creates respect even from those who do not fully agree. The choice to prioritize self-respect also frees them from unnecessary guilt, because guilt has long been the weapon that keeps people pleasers in line. And many women have carried that guilt like a shadow for years, feeling selfish for resting, feeling guilty for saying no, feeling unworthy of putting themselves first. But as they grow older, they recognize that guilt is often misplaced and that the true selfishness lies in asking someone to shrink themselves to make others comfortable. So they begin to let go of guilt and replace it with grace, because grace honors both themselves and others without erasing their identity. Another layer of this hidden habit is how they start making decisions that honor their long-term well-being. Instead of the short-term comfort of others, they say no to commitments that drain them. They decline relationships that do not value them. They refuse opportunities that compromise their values. And this discipline builds a strong foundation, because every no that protects their peace is also a yes to their future self. And while outsiders may not see the significance of these choices, each one is a declaration of worth, a statement that their life is theirs to live, not someone else's to control. They also begin to notice how self-respect changes the way others treat them, because people quickly learn where the lines are drawn when they interact with someone who values themselves. And while people pleasers often attract those who take advantage of their kindness, women who choose self-respect attract those who appreciate balance and reciprocity. And this shift in dynamics creates healthier connections, because the respect they give themselves sets the standard for how others must show up, and slowly their world fills with relationships that honor their growth rather than exploit their giving nature. Ultimately, prioritizing self-respect becomes a habit so ingrained it guides every area of their lives. It shapes how they show up in conversations, how they spend their time, how they protect their energy, and how they move through the world without apology. And this transformation does not come with loud declarations or dramatic moments. It comes quietly, steadily, in the everyday choices to honor themselves first. And that commitment to self-respect allows them to walk taller, breathe easier, and live freer than they ever could when they were trying to please everyone else. They practice observation more than reaction because years of living and experiencing have taught them that not everything deserves an immediate response and not every situation benefits from rushing forward. And when they were younger, there was often a pull to speak quickly, to defend themselves, to jump into the middle of things without pausing to understand the full picture. But time has shown them that reacting fast is not the same as responding wisely, and that most mistakes are made in the heat of the moment when emotions are running high and patience is nowhere to be found. And so observation becomes their hidden strength. When they walk into a room, they do not feel the need to dominate the space with their voice or prove their presence with loud gestures. Instead, they watch, they listen. They take in what is happening around them, and in that quiet pause, they gather details. Others miss, they notice the tone of a conversation, the body language of the people involved, the unspoken dynamics that influence what is really going on. And by the time they do choose to speak or act, their words are sharp, focused, and effective because they are grounded not in impulse but in understanding. This habit shows itself most clearly in conflict because where many rush to argue or defend themselves, they hold back and listen. And while others may misinterpret their silence as weakness or hesitation, they are actually processing and deciding whether the issue even deserves their involvement. And often they conclude that it does not, which saves them from endless arguments that lead nowhere. But when they do choose to engage, they bring a perspective so measured and precise that it shifts the tone of the entire exchange because wisdom speaks differently than emotion, and people can feel that difference immediately. The practice of observing before reacting also keeps them in control of their emotions because they have learned that once you hand over your reactions, you hand over your power, and they refuse to let someone else decide how they will feel or respond. So they create a pause between what happens to them and how they answer it. And in that pause, they breathe, they think, they evaluate. And that short pause changes everything because it allows them to respond with intention instead of regret. And it protects their peace from being stolen by someone else's behavior. Another layer of this hidden habit is how they use observation to build deeper connections with people, because by listening more and reacting less, they create space for others to be fully seen and heard, and people naturally trust those who listen without rushing to speak. And this trust often gives them insight into others that is not easily gained by those who are always talking, and they use this insight not to manipulate, but to strengthen relationships and navigate interactions with empathy and wisdom. And this makes them the kind of presence people value and respect, even if they cannot explain exactly why. Observation also allows them to spot patterns that others miss, because life is full of repeated lessons, and those who rush rarely see the connections, but by watching carefully, they can tell when history is about to repeat itself, and they use that awareness to avoid mistakes and make better decisions. And this ability to see patterns is what gives them an edge in both personal and professional life, because while others get caught reacting to the same challenges over and over, they are already adjusting course and finding smarter ways forward without unnecessary stress or chaos. Over time, this habit of practicing observation over reaction becomes second nature. It is not something they force themselves to do. It becomes how they live, how they interact, and how they navigate the ups and downs of life. And it shows in the way they carry themselves with calmness, in tense situations with patience, when others are rushing with wisdom, when others are guessing. And while it may not be a habit that people openly talk about, it is one that shapes every part of their life, because observation is the foundation of clarity, and clarity is the foundation of strength. They invest in routines that others often overlook because through experience, they have realized that the smallest consistent actions shape the biggest results in life. And while many people chase grand gestures or dramatic changes, they understand that true stability and growth come from the quiet, repetitive rituals that build structure into their days. And these routines may look ordinary to an outsider, but to them, they are the foundation that keeps life balanced and manageable. And that sense of rhythm allows them to focus their energy on what truly matters rather than constantly scrambling to stay afloat in the chaos of everyday living. They know that mornings set the tone for the entire day, so they guard the way they begin each one, whether it is through a moment of silence, a stretch, a cup of tea, or a short walk. Their mornings are not rushed, but intentional because they see mornings as the starting line of how they want to show up for themselves and others. And while people younger than them may dismiss such rituals as unimportant, they have lived long enough to know that when you neglect the start of your day, the rest of it often slips out of your control. So they protect that opening routine like it is sacred. The same is true for how they close their days, because ending with purpose is just as powerful as beginning with it. And they understand the need to put the mind and body at rest rather than carrying the weight of the day into the night. So they create small rituals that signal closure, maybe through reading, journaling, quiet reflection, or preparing the environment for tomorrow. And these routines are not complicated, but they are steady. And this steadiness gives them a sense of security because it reminds them that no matter how unpredictable the world may be, they can always return to the rhythm they have chosen for themselves. They also invest in routines around their health because they no longer take energy, strength, or wellness for granted. They create habits that protect their bodies, whether through regular movement, mindful eating, or simple practices like drinking water and resting properly. And while these routines may not seem glamorous, they know the cost of neglect, and they refuse to trade short-term convenience for long-term struggle. So they choose discipline over neglect. And this investment becomes a way of honoring themselves because health is not something to chase when it is lost. It is something to protect every single day. Another overlooked routine they value is the practice of reflection because they know that without checking in on themselves, life can become a blur of responsibilities and noise. So they intentionally pause to ask where they are headed, whether their choices align with their values, and what needs to be adjusted. And this reflective routine keeps them from drifting into patterns that do not serve them and instead anchors them to what matters. And it is in these small check-ins that they catch themselves before they fall too far into old habits. And that kind of awareness is what gives them long-term direction. They also make routines out of gratitude and connection because they understand the importance of keeping perspective and staying close to the people who matter most. And whether it is reaching out to family, sharing a meal, or simply naming what they are thankful for, they embed these small acts into their lives as non-negotiables because they know consistency in relationships and perspective is what fuels resilience when challenges arise. And many people underestimate these routines, but to them, they are part of the invisible foundation that keeps them grounded, supported, and focused on what truly matters. Over time, these routines become more than habits. They become a form of identity, a way of living that aligns with their values and supports their goals. And while others may see them as simple, repetitive actions, they know that these small structures are what free them from chaos and allow them to thrive. And the power of these routines lies not in their complexity, but in their consistency, because it is through the ordinary daily choices that extraordinary stability is built. And by investing in routines that others overlook, they create a life that is steady, resilient, and fully their own. They carry confidence that is not loud because they have learned that true confidence does not need to announce itself to be felt. And when they walk into a room, they do not rely on volume or performance to command attention. Instead, their presence speaks before they even open their mouths. And this kind of quiet strength is built from years of challenges, faced lessons learned, and identities shaped through both wins and losses. And unlike the fragile confidence that depends on compliments or recognition, theirs is rooted deep within, making it steady and unshakable no matter the environment they step into. They understand that confidence is not about proving something to others, but about knowing themselves and standing firm in that knowledge. so they no longer chase validation from the outside world because they have already validated themselves through the storms they have weathered and the choices they have made. And while others may be caught up in seeking constant approval, they walk a different path, one where their worth is not tied to applause or attention. And this independence gives them a calm assurance that others can sense without it ever being spoken out loud. When they carry this quiet confidence, it changes the way they move through conversations because they are not afraid of silence. They are not desperate to fill gaps with words just to be noticed. And they are not shaken by disagreement because they know that not everyone has to agree with them for their truth to stand. And in this steadiness lies their power because people listen more closely to someone who speaks less but with intention, and that intentionality becomes their trademark, a way of showing that their confidence is not performance, it is presence. This steady confidence also shows in how they handle setbacks because they do not crumble when things go wrong and they do not let failure define them. Instead, they see challenges as another chapter in their story, another lesson to integrate into their growth. And this perspective comes only from years of living through ups and downs and realizing that no single event determines their value. And because of this understanding, they approach problems with composure and patience while others rush into panic. And it is this ability to remain steady under pressure that makes their confidence undeniable. Another layer of their quiet confidence is that it makes space for others rather than overshadowing them, because people who are secure in themselves do not feel the need to compete for the spotlight or dominate every conversation. They are comfortable sharing credit, encouraging others, and stepping back when needed because their sense of self does not shrink when someone else shines. And this generosity comes across as both humility and strength, and it creates an environment where people feel safe to be themselves because they are not threatened by someone who knows exactly who they are. They also embody confidence in the way they carry themselves physically because body language reveals more than words ever could. They do not rush or fidget or overcompensate with exaggerated gestures. They move with purpose, they stand with poise, and they maintain an ease that signals they are comfortable in their own skin. And others pick up on this instantly because even without saying a word, their posture and presence communicate assurance. And this physical expression of confidence often influences the energy of a room, making people naturally pay attention to them without effort. Over time, this quiet confidence becomes the defining feature of how they live because it is consistent across situations. It does not fade when circumstances change, it does not disappear when recognition is absent, and it does not depend on anything external to remain strong. It is the kind of confidence that allows them to face challenges with courage, to connect with others authentically, and to walk through life with a steady grace that speaks louder than any performance ever could. And though few people talk about it, this hidden habit is one of the most powerful qualities they carry.